You know him, obviously, from all of our Fox Sports shows. You saw him on Undisputed earlier today. And, of course, you can hear him weekends on Fox Sports Radio. His Chris Broussard. He joins us now in the herd. Was not selected in last night's NBA All-Star media draft. Not sure if he's aware that that took place.
I would be the number one pick in the media draft. That's not saying much, but
you'd be selected ahead of me, or NBA guys that cover I think you'd go ahead of Windhorst. I think you go ahead of Woj. The former players, I think, where do they fit in that mix?
We played with Brent Barry. Was Brent or John? It was Brent Barry and Grant Long once. We actually beat their team. I was playing the team. We beat. It was me and a bunch of writers.
Was there money on the line?
No.
But then it doesn't matter,
but
right?
We beat them.
That's the whole thing with this. Like, I know we're making a big deal. I don't really the NBA All-Star Game is probably the best of the All-Star games, and it should be the best because they should be able to be competitive, but they're not. They don't guard anybody, and so while they're unbelievably talented, way more talent than there has ever been in the NBA, it still doesn't make it any better to watch.
I thought the All-Star Game used to be good.
Yes.
Up until about 4 years ago. And that was, I think it was in New York, was the first year I was completely turned off when Westbrook won the MVP. Nothing against him, but it became all three-pointers and wide-open dunks. If you look at the numbers, they jumped from like 70-something three-pointers combined to 108. 2 years ago, they took 139. Last year, 122. I believe there's a threshold to how many three-pointers you can take without ruining the game. Or whether it's a real game or an exhibition.
Sure.
I think it gets lazy. Basketball is not meant to be just a bunch of 30-foot shots. And so that's why I think the All-Star games become bad. And I don't know that I see that changing because the game is becoming more and more three-point heavy.
All right, let's get to a couple of the stories of the day in the league. The big one came out yesterday, which was that reportedly Kyrie Irving had said, hey, if you don't trade me, I'll just have knee surgery. I'll sit out the year. What's your reaction to that story?
I don't have any problem with Kyrie if that's what he did. It shows how much he wanted to get out of there. And maybe it was even a bluff. You know, I don't see it any different than a player holding out. And NBA players did used to hold out before there was a rookie salary scale.
Sure. Guys
would hold out. Steve Francis never went to play for Vancouver. You know, he forced them to trade him. Jimmy Jackson, who's our colleague here at FS1, he held out with the Dallas Mavericks. Ron Harper did it in Cleveland years ago. So that's not that unusual. I think that it was leaked from the front office, because the front office is starting to look bad in a lot of people's eyes. People are ripping them for the trade, saying it didn't work. They're saying you didn't have to trade him. They're comparing him to San Antonio, which didn't trade LaMarcus Aldridge. The Lakers, who never traded Kobe Bryant. At the meeting where Kevin Love was called out, he was not the only one called out. It was a lot of guys called out, including the GM, Kobe Altman, who was there. And so now you're starting to catch heat as a young front office. I don't think it's any coincidence that this story was leaked.
Okay, so you have this story being leaked. You have the Kevin Love story being leaked. Like, you even have the story from Brian Windhorst, who said, look, LeBron's mad that they didn't get Paul George, they didn't get Eric Bledsoe. You're hearing all these stories. None of them in any way call out LeBron James or Rich Paul in some of the decisions that they've made, pushing guys to get contracts. Doesn't that point to, at least on some level, some of these leaks come from his camp?
Well, I think the Windhorst information may have come from just talking with LeBron's guys. There's no question about that. As far as Woj's story about the Kevin Love, there's no way he got that from LeBron's guys. That didn't happen. There's no way that came from them. That may have come from an agent, because agents leak a lot of this stuff, and players tell agents what happened at practice and games and locker room. So I think I would bet an agent, possibly front office, but if I had to bet, I would say an agent.
Okay,
or agents.
So look, I'm willing to concede that some of this stuff goes on a lot of teams, right? Like the Kawhi Leonard with the Spurs thing. I think there's a lot of, there's who was it? It was Damian Lillard went and saw ownership over the progress. Like this happens. There's a lot of unrest in the NBA.
The Clippers were a complete mess with Chris Paul there.
Right. So, but the litany of stories coming out of Cleveland, is that just the times we live in where this information is more readily available? Is it that this team has been to 3 straight NBA finals and it could be the last year? Or is it, dude, this is a dumpster fire? You got leaking stories. You got players-only meetings. You've lost 6 of your last 7. Like, it feels like there's a lot more going on in Cleveland than is going on in most any other NBA team.
I think we care more. You know, again, if people don't care as much about Chris Paul's beefs with teammates. I mean, they care to some degree, but not like they care about LeBron James. You know, so I think, you know, anything involving LeBron is a lot more newsworthy and sensational, and people just are into it more. So I think that's one of the things. I do think that LeBron, with his passive aggressiveness, you know, has definitely spurred a lot of this over the past several years. Stories leak now way more than ever because of technology. Whereas years ago, it's hard to get 3 or 4 GMs on the phone in one day, you know, on the phone. But in terms of texting, you can always text with guys. And so I think that's why you see more leaks and more, you know, stories coming out that you didn't see years ago.
The NBA All-Star selections were not televised. I want to talk about that upcoming next with you, Chris, and show you the exact reason they were not televised was, in fact, televised last night. That's upcoming next. Chris Broussard continues to join us. I'm Doug Gottlieb. This is The Hurt. I don't know if you guys watched the Oklahoma City Thunder last night, but Russell Westbrook had 46 points, 46 damn points last night. But what he said afterwards to me, Chris, was the perfect example of why they did not televise the NBA All-Star Game draft. Take a listen.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's good, man. Finally got the team figured out.
Tell me how you really feel.
Well, I see that I was the last pick on the list. I was just trying to figure out, you know.
Alphabetical. It was alphabetical.
See, I told you, man. Alphabetical order, man. Of course I was first.
So, look, I don't know if he really knew he wasn't the last pick.
I don't think he knew.
I don't think he knew either, right? 46, 6, and 6. Did have 6 turnovers as well. But more importantly, they throttled the Washington Wizards, who have all kinds of problems of their own, but nobody – it's not LeBron, so we're not reporting it, right?
Case in point.
They have a ton of issues.
Yep.
But, like, isn't this the real reason that they didn't televise it was – like, Russell Westbrook was drafted, wasn't drafted last. Because he thought he was drafted last, he goes out and has 46 and plays like a raging animal.
Ben Simmons, who thought he should have been an all-star, you saw his first game after the news was made that he didn't make the team. You saw how solemn Westbrook looked at the beginning of that interview. And then he brightened up when he found out he wasn't the last pick. I get it. And as a fan, it would have been great for us to watch the draft, but I totally get why the NBA didn't televise it. And honestly, I think they should keep it untelevised for a few reasons. One, you see how guys take it. And Kevin Durant was happy that he was picked number 1.
Which he actually wasn't picked number 1, to be honest. Steph and LeBron went number 1 and 2. He was the first of the selection.
Yeah, he was picked number 1 by the fans.
Right.
He was picked, number 1 by LeBron and Steph. But if Steph Curry were to pick Jimmy Butler over Klay Thompson, how do you think Klay Thompson's going to feel? Now, some guys might laugh it off. Some guys might feel slighted. You know, you might look at him a little funny or think in the back of your mind, he don't think I'm as good as I thought he knew I was. Or, you know, like on the playground, we all have compared it to the playground. You felt slighted if you were the last pick or if you were a couple guys were picked ahead of you that you thought you were as good as.
The last pick, you feel the worst.
And that's where, like, a lot of people are assuming it was Al Horford. That's probably a good assumption. It would have made, like, this should be nothing but a positive experience for Al Horford. But if he's picked last on national TV by your peers, not even by writers or coaches, but by your peers, then that can throw a negative That can make it feel negative for a guy when it should be completely positive. I don't have any problem with them not televising it. To be honest, I hope they don't, because I don't really want to see guys get slighted and feel bad for what should be a great experience.
Yeah, but what if it motivates them and they end up dropping 46 because they feel slighted by it? If it gives them a
lot of guys aren't capable of doing that.
That's true. Al Horford is not going to go ISO and just start lighting into dudes. I don't see that happening as well. I think it's fascinating, but I don't think it causes me to want to watch anymore. Like, do you?
I was excited to see the way they did it. I was excited to see what the teams were. That was enough for me. I mean, I didn't have to see it. You know what else would be great for fans to see?
What?
If we had cameras in every team's war room at the trade deadline. And then we could find out, they're trying to trade Paul George, or they're trying to trade Kevin Love. That's not good for the team, though. It would be great for us. Unlimited access in the locker room. That would be great to watch. You see how players really interact with each other. But that's not good for team chemistry and hence the game. And so I don't think it should be showed.
Everything. But what you're saying, but we know that Giannis was actually Steph Curry's first pick, right? So
I think he said, it came out. I don't remember how it came out.
Like there are no more secrets anymore. There's only facts that are yet to be revealed. That's by the way a Doug Gottlieb saying. You can feel free to quote that. I got that trademark, right? So we may not televise who was picked ahead, but we now know Giannis went ahead of Klay Thompson. They're fine.
Well, he didn't go ahead. He didn't go ahead. He had to go ahead of Klay.
Why?
Because they picked the starters first.
Okay.
You had to pick
was Klay the
so
first,
you could only pick among
reserve
8.
Picked?
I don't know, but I bet you it was Klay or Draymond. I bet you it was Klay or Draymond.
But was it Klay then Draymond?
Well, and again, we don't know, but that's another thing. What if and I don't think he would get mad, but what if Draymond was like, he picked Klay first, not me first?
If you had to bet your salary that one player is going to be traded to the Cavs before the trade deadline, who would it be? I'm not saying you do have to bet your salary. I said if you had to.
I don't believe it's going to be DeAndre Jordan.
See, I don't understand how the George Hill thing works, right? Because then whatever guards are
left, what do
they
do with him?
Right.
He would be the one I'd say. I mean, there's been talk. I don't see the Kemba Walker.
Kills him in the luxury tax if they take George Hill, right? And by the way, whatever guards are left behind, he has to somehow play with. And by the way, you still have the issue of rim protection, which they have none. And now they're going to start Tristan Thompson, which will help them defensively, but it changes completely how they've been playing offensively. Like these are unfixable.
See, and that's because they don't know who they are. Their identity is all in flux.
Right.
Like they used to know who they were when they won it in 2016. They knew they were a physical, fairly defensive-minded team.
You want to know one of their biggest problems is? They don't practice. They don't because so many guys are long in the tooth. They don't practice, including LeBron James. They'll work out, they'll get shots up. They don't practice. That's why they don't know where they're supposed to be.
That hurts the defense. But a lot of teams nowadays aren't practicing as much, as they used to. But yeah, that certainly hurts your communication on defense and things like that. But I still like the Hill move, and you're right. It could cause major upheaval in that locker room, though. If you end up starting him at some point above Isaiah.
There's one main reason why Michael Jordan is the best team athlete ever. Above Tom Brady. I'll prove it to you. Thanks, Chris. This is The Herd.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.